Hi everyone, Matt Bernier, Dan Illman, taking a look back at the Grade 1 Alcibiades from opening day at Keeneland Racecourse, and our weekend wrap coverage brought to you by our friends at Fasig-Tipton. The Alcibiades, 2-year-old fillies going 2 turns, many of them for the first time in their careers. They break from the gate. You're going to notice Mark Casse, both of his runners in here, they show big speed early.
Dancing especially showing some real big speed to get to the front, but not far behind is the number 9 Heavenly Love. And Heavenly Love making the turf to dirt move for Casse really is relaxed, pressing the pace in those pink silks, and I think that's the key to victory here.
Yeah, she's sitting off of the uncoupled stablemate, Dancing, as you had brought up. Dancing much more of sort of, we assumed was going to be the dirt horse, but it's not as though Heavenly Love isn't bred for this, although she broke her maiden over the turf. You look at the fractions, a shade under 24 for the opening quarter mile, half mile in 48-1. Everyone seems to be moving quite sweetly at this point, although the pace may be a little bit to the detriment of the horses coming from the back, most notably a horse like Princess Warrior.
Princess Warrior was so impressive in her career debut at Churchill Downs, squeezing through a tight opening down on the rail late to win. She was stretching out for the first time. You see her, she's the number 1 right now, and she's sort of settling into a nice spot in mid-pack, but this pace is working against her. You're right, Matt. This pace is slow, and it could have hurt Princess Warrior's chances.
Pretty quick, Julian Leperoux aboard. Heavenly Love is going to ratchet up the pressure here with Manny Franco aboard Dancing. At this point, it's going to look like you're going to see Julian get into her a little bit, but really, once he asks her a little bit, she responds immediately, and it's not that Dancing doesn't run well, it's just Heavenly Love is that much better.
Heavenly Love is better. You're absolutely right. She's going to collar Dancing right now on the far outside, just about edging into third with a 4-wide bid is Princess Warrior. But you have to remember also, mile and a 16th races at Keeneland. It's a very short stretch. Advantage to horses turning into the stretch with the lead, and an advantage for Heavenly Love.
Keep an eye on Heavenly Love. Look at her ears. They're up straight. This is a horse, I think there's a lot more in this tank. I know this is her 3rd lifetime start, and she wins this race by over 5 lengths, but to me, this is the kind of filly that has more room to improve from this point.
I agree. I think there's a lot of improvement for her. Her tactical speed is her best asset. You know, the elephant in the room from this race is that the race came back slow. Mark Casse actually had a 2-year-old filly in the opener on opening day at Keeneland that ran the mile and a 16th faster than the Grade 1 Alcibiades. But these horses, they do improve by leaps and bounds from start to start. They are still improving.
Heavenly Love pays $13.40 on the win end. Princess Warrior, $3.40. To place Dancing, the other Casse entrant in this spot, $6.60 to show. $2 exact, it comes back $48.80. Heavenly Love is a horse by Malibu Moon. She is out of the mare Darling My Darling. She did some good things herself as a racehorse out on the racetrack. She won the Raven Run as well as the Double Dog Dare. This horse is a half to Forever Darling, who won the Santa Ynez earlier this year or last year, one of the two. This is a fascinating pedigree here. You would have no reason to think that additional distance past this 8.5 is going to be any sort of an issue. And right now, although it was a little bit slow, the 80 buyer, it doesn't mean that she can't take another step forward, and they have every right to go to the Breeders' Cup.
She has to be considered a legitimate contender for the Breeders' Cup, again, for everything we've said, the tactical speed and also the versatility. They've thrown a lot at her. They ran her on turf. They ran her here 2 turns in the Alcibiades. She's pretty much handled everything thrown at her. The pace was slow, though, and when you see the Heavenly Love, who was sitting second, ran off and hid. Dancing, the pace setter, held on for third. Sassy Sienna, a horse moving from turf to dirt, was sort of in the firing line in the early portion of the race, despite White still hanging on for 4th. I wonder if you should give extra points to Princess Warrior for being really the only horse in the race to make up significant late ground.
No, and also, this is only her 2nd lifetime start. First time going 2 turns. Kenny McPeak said there was a lot of things thrown at her in a short amount of time, breaking from the inside. She handled it quite well. The concern becomes, again, from a speed figure standpoint, how much room, put it this way, let me rephrase that. How long are you willing to go with these horses until they take another big step forward? Or is it we're already at the point now where they're that far behind their contemporaries?
I think with 2-year-olds, they're constantly learning. I think 2-year-olds, you give them 5, 6, 7 starts to reach their potential. A horse like Heavenly Love is still figuring it out. She should be brimming with confidence. You noticed her ears, as you said, were completely pricked up. She was enjoying her work. It appears she is coming into form for the Breeders' Cup Juvenile fillies at the same time. That being said, there are faster fillies in the race that also have scope for improvement. We'll talk about the Frizette winner, Separation of Powers, of course, Moonshine Memories out in Southern California.
You've got horses in here like Sassy Sienna and Kelly's Humor. Sassy Sienna had tried the turf a couple of times for Brad Cox. Kelly's Humor for Brad Cox as well, a horse that we've seen what she's capable of doing on dirt. It just doesn't seem like they're taking the necessary step forward. The question I have for you is, again, how many races is too many before we get to the point where you question how good are they actually?
I don't think Sassy Sienna is ready for a race like the Breeders' Cup Juvenile fillies. I think there is talent here. She may have been compromised somewhat by being hung out wide around both turns while chasing this moderate to slow pace. I never really thought she was a turf horse to begin with. I think the reason she ran on turf twice was to get around 2 turns. She is a distance filly, and I think she showed in this race that she probably belongs on dirt with that turf in her hip pocket. There are options for Sassy Sienna, and I think she's a stakes horse. I think Kelly's Humor is a late running sprinter, and I think they've tried to make her a 2-turn filly. She's run okay in these races, but I think you cut her back and give her some pace, she'll come with a kick. I think eventually the connections will try that route.
Bet She Wins was a fascinating entrant in here. She came in with the highest last out buyer in the field with a 90. That came over a synthetic surface over at Arlington, and that was the outlier. Now you see she comes back here with a 65. She has 3 races sub 65. She has 1 with a 90. Is that the outlier, simply put?
It's absolutely the outlier right now. She didn't necessarily break well in this race, but there were a lot of question marks coming off of that synthetic race, a lot of question marks about that buyer speed figure and whether it was truly earned considering her overall body of work, and I think the jury is still out with Bet She Wins.
You and I both liked Pacific Gale coming into this spot. We figured she would have the potential to be loose on the lead. She breaks sharply. She's taken back. Any excuse?
No, she broke well. They took her back. I think the connections were very concerned about the distance. She didn't exactly have a distance pedigree. She looked good in the stakes race sprinting at Monmouth. I think we will see her back in sprint races very, very soon, but I also am not sure she's a graded stakes filly right now. Basically, her ceiling might be a listed level.
Heavenly Love looks like a nice one for Mark Cassie. He runs 1-3 in the Grade 1 Alcibiades. And again, our weekend wrap coverage brought to you by our friends at Fasig-Tipton. Heavenly Love looks like she's on to the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. She wins the Alcibiades with an 80 buyer speed figure.